Going to this. Thank you, Keri. Go ahead.
Well, hi, family. It's nice to see you. I was feeling a little unfocused today, too. I got to be honest with you because, let's see, today I spent a good chunk of the day on the phone with my kids' school, dealing with the bullying issue, dealing with the Boys and Girls Club, dealing with the other piece of the bullying issue. I have the plumber here trying to fix the heat because my heat broke. We got a giant flood happening. You know, it's life on life's terms, right? But you know what? I actually think it's a good thing because you know, it keeps me grounded and focused in what like every family is going through. Like we're all going through something. And none of these issues happen in isolation. Like we talk a lot about the economy and education in our organization, but I think the thing that makes us very special as an organization is that we are actual parents. Like my most important job is being Matthew, Miles, David, Max, and Dylan's mama. And so today I had to kind of like, and thank goodness I could kind of clear my schedule a little bit and say like, listen, I got a little boy who's getting bullied and is being really hurt and upset. And, you know, I got to be a mom first and deal with that first and foremost. But it's tough out there. It's really, really tough out there for a lot of families across the country. And I'm sitting here in Boston, you know, saying, oh, poor me, poor me. But, you know, there are a lot of families out there that have a hell of a lot more difficult than I do. But as we're heading towards what is going to be a pretty significant speech from the President of the United States, where he's going to kind of outline the State of the Union and how we're all doing from his perspective. I thought it was kind of on us to step up and have some real talk about how we feel like American families are doing. Because I don't know about you, but I've watched a couple of these speeches before, and I listened to some of these folks kind of pop off, you know, in the United States Senate and Congress. You know, we had the governor of Florida last week, you know, getting involved in like really micro issues of education that we never see governors get involved in, except when they want to make a point of letting us know that they are racist. Like they want to make it real clear that they don't like Black people and they have it out for BIPOC communities. I mean, I see no other purpose why a governor would actually get involved in a situation like ending an AP course. Have you all ever heard of that before? You got families out here who are living hand to mouth, you know, really struggling out here. You got, you know, people who are worried about, you know, what their future is going to look like, if they can hold on to their mortgage, if they can pay the rent, you know, what healthcare is looking like, whether or not our neighborhoods are safe, you know, what's happening with the environment or taxes, all of this kind of stuff happening. And this dude is really worried about AP African-American history. So I don't know about you, I get a little frustrated having to sit back and watch folks be just so disconnected from the real issues that American families are facing. So what I wanted to do is kind of hop in and talk with y'all just to see from your perspective, you know, what do you think the major issues are of the day? You know, we have a brand new poll that's going to be coming out, and we're doing it in a very intentional way, as we always do. There's always strategy behind this stuff, right? But we want to be able to have this discussion with all of you that are representative of families across the country, but we also want to back it up with data and make sure that we put a poll out in the field and say, okay, if President Biden is going to deliver the 2023 State of the Union address, what do you want to hear from him? Is it the economy? Is it abortion? Is it healthcare, crime and public safety, K through 12 education, immigration, the environment, taxes, gun policy, political corruption, COVID-19, race relations? Like, what is it that's important to you? But we want to hear from you as well. You know, the folks that are out there having conversations every single day with families across the country to see what you're hearing and what you're feeling, what you want to hear from President Biden. And all of this is in the spirit and the hopes that like maybe if we continue to bust through some of these doors and have these conversations, that they'll start to get focused and start to listen to us. And I know in some ways that seems a little far-fetched, but you know, some of us were able to go down to Washington, D.C. this week and go and sit in the front row right in front of Secretary Cardona at his invitation, because at least they're making the motion towards wanting to hear from us and wanting us to be a part of the conversation. Now, whether or not we've reached the promised land of actually being there and they're really going to listen, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical, but you can't influence a conversation if you ain't in the room. So at least we're getting somewhere a little bit. So what are we saying when we're in the room? This is what we're asking you guys tonight. So I want to kind of open the floor and ask you guys, you know, from your perspectives, from where you sit, what are you looking for? Like, what do you want to hear from the president? What do you want to hear from? And you know, after the State of the Union, there's always the rebuttal from the Republicans, and there's, you know, a speech that comes from, you know, the minority leader. You know, all of the fancy folks want to weigh in. We think we should weigh in too. So what do you want to hear from these folks? What should be the priorities of the president and the leadership of the United States? And like, what are they missing? What are they missing out of these conversations? So does anybody want to jump in first?
Okay, everybody, y'all can say something. I mean, there's a lot going on right now. I know I like to hear, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. K through 12 education, because it's a mess out here in Texas. So that's one of the priorities for me here. But also inflation, because I am hearing from families who are struggling because inflation is high and trying to find resources that would help them out. But to me, it's more the K through 12, the issues that are not being resolved because they're not talking to us. I mean,
well, let's talk about that inflation issue for a minute and like double click on that a little bit.
okay.
I don't know about you guys, but my grocery bill, just my grocery bill, I feel like, you know, a lot of people have talked about like it's been double-digit increases over the past 6 months, like ridiculous. But my grocery bill, I feel like every single week it's higher and higher and higher. Like I can't even predict. The same thing with my electric bill. I don't know if you guys are going through this in every other part of the country, but I got to tell you, up here in the Northeast, holy crap. Like I had an electric bill. First, I got hit with a $400 one. And I was like, my God, like, and I'm running around here, shutting every light off, like chasing kids down, saying, oh my God. And then we got one for over $700. I can't be paying bills like this. Deborah, jump in here, because like, am I crazy? Because I just—
No, you're not crazy. I literally was on the phone. We have National Grid here in Troy, New York, and I literally was on the phone with them. And every time I spoke to them once, I want to say last Wednesday, and then I spoke to somebody twice Saturday, and then I spoke to someone again on Monday. And each one of those people, so that's 4 different people I spoke to, gave me a different scenario, right? The best person that I spoke to was the lady, I will never forget her name. Her name is Melinda, and she lived in Buffalo. And she was the one who gave the best information. What I found out was that, so, you know, when you working and you are trying to make sure you stay afloat, I assume that because I don't get services, I don't qualify for most of these, you know, the programs, whatever, because my income. But I found out that for New York State, the HEAP grant that's out, they up the amount for the income qualifications, which they're not telling people. So if you are a household of, let's just say it's a household of 5, it's now 66, I think it's $6,300 or something like that. And if you're a household of 7, it's like $8,000, but people don't know that. So they're not telling people that. And if you don't ask the right questions, it's almost like a hush hush thing, but you're absolutely right. My bill was $594. And I'm being honest, I refuse to pay it. I don't want us to sit in the dark, but at the same time, it's like, what do you do? It's like, do you like in the space of, do you pay the National Grid bill, or do you pay for food, or do you get gas? So I literally been sharing this information with everybody in the grocery store, at the school, at the gas station. Like, you should go there and apply.
Program. Even if you think you don't you're not
Yes.
gonna qualify, check the program just to see what because these folks are not gonna tell you.
No.
Because
And
they're not trying to save you money, they're trying to get your money, so they're
they
not trying
also extended, our governor also extended this other program that they had during COVID for heat benefits. It's almost like the same kind of setup. That one, I think that one is a lower income base, but it's also something that people don't know. It's like $1.5 million or something. I might be off, it might be way higher, but it was a bunch of billions or something like that that she added on to this particular bill, and you got to apply for it within a certain amount of time, which they're not telling people that neither.
And it's stressful, right? Because you don't know about the program. It's wonderful if you can get on the program. Sometimes it takes time to get on the program, but you can't even set a budget. I don't know about y'all, but I need to have a budget. I think it's my past trauma, but I need to know where my money is and where it's going and how much I got. I got to know, right? So I can predict, because it's that insecurity that I don't think ever goes away when you grow up with that, right? But how do you budget? How do you budget and plan when you have these dramatic swings, like from $200 one month and then you got $700? Yeah, exactly. You cannot plan for anything. And so the stress and the chaos, like when that day when you get that bill in the mailbox and you're like, Jesus, how am I gonna do this? Like, that's another $500. Where am I gonna find $500? There are a lot of families that are literally living like down to the wire. And so you're talking about like an extra $500, or you're talking about like at the grocery store. I don't know about you guys, but like, I have 5 little boys. Okay. And even if I'm trying to like do whatever kind of, shucking and jiving I possibly can, like I'm getting food from here, I'm watching people on TikTok who have the magic about going to the dollar store and being able to make $50 stretch for like 10 days I'm going from store to store trying to get the deals and whatnot. Like, even in that, like I go to try to get some fresh produce, and like you could easily like get like a bag of apples, a couple extra things, and you're running $200. $200. It seems like no matter where you turn, like somebody's coming at you economically, in this climate.
I like to say, so it's so weird because my light and gas bill is combined, and in Detroit, with my house, my light and gas bill in the winter, I'm always used to paying at least $650. Well, last month mine was $900. And I opened that bill and I swear I went to raise hell with everybody in the house. Like, look, y'all, I need y'all to turn these lights off. Like, Carlos came to me one day, was like, Mom, can we, you mind if I turn the heat up, And I said, look, are you cold when you lay down in bed? If not, put some extra clothes on. Because I just paid a $959 bill. Like, and I do my best to pay my bill every single month so it don't stack up come winter time. Because if I don't pay it, you know how sometimes people balance and they say in the summer I'm not gonna pay as much, or in the summer I'm gonna pay more so I don't have to. It don't work like that here. In the summer I can pay.
It's actually opposite. You pay more in the winter.
Yeah, but it still don't work like that here for us. It still end up turning around some kind of way. And then we just had I'm about to lie on the percentage. We just had a percentage. I'll get the right percentage raise. And we just had a meeting with our local energy company. And they asked us between 3:00 in the afternoon. I don't know if y'all know this, but this is across the country. So at our big event last month, we had somebody from the energy efficiency company come out. Between the hours of 3 and 7, they are asking people not to cook. They are asking people to cook earlier, because the way if you read your bill, you have different rates, not just for the gas you use, but for the time of day you use your gas. And gas is higher between the hours of 3 and 7 because more people in the country cook between the hours of 3 and 7.
This is where it's insane. This is where it's crazy. How do you let National Grid and all these folks get away with that kind of crap? You can't cook between 3 and 7. That's dinner time. And
so
how
do
have regulation? Like, that's what I want to hear Joe Biden talking about.
Yeah.
Like, if you take a look at your bill, right? And you take a look at the transportation costs, like just to get the gas or the electricity to your house,
Mhm.
half the time that's more than the damn electricity or the damn gas that you're getting. Like, and that all comes down to regulation and how much they're allowed to charge you. It seems like they're allowed to do whatever they want.
Yeah. And then, so that's just my light and gas bill. And so I also have, for just me and Victoria's car, who both of our cars are 10 years old, basically, I pay $658 a month for our car insurance. $658 a month for car insurance. So that means every month, just for my basic bills, I'm coming out of almost $1,700, right? That's not to mention it's my water bill. That's not my water bill, right? We live in the Great Lakes where the water is supposed to be the purest and all this kind of stuff. We live right by where the water was owned. And now our water is higher than anybody in the suburbs, right? And it's like all these little nuances that I'm like, if I have the grace to work for an organization like NPU or have some type of better finances than some of the people that I know, I am so concerned about the people I know. Like, and it's people in this country, which lead me to like that classism side of economics, where people are like, oh, it's not the state's place to take care of poor families, and it's not the state's place. Like, that's our tax dollars. Screw you and your tax dollars. You don't say nothing when they spend $1 billion on the whales. You don't say nothing when they spend all this money overseas. And I'm not being funny, but you will spend all this money overseas, but you won't bail out your own people. Like, you won't make sure that your own people are economically sound to make sure that, like, we don't have more people losing their houses, more people on the street, more people with mental health, because all this going in together. Like, if I'm struggling as a mom or dad, I had to tell my son and my nieces, like, they live here with me. And I'm like, I'm not being funny, but baby, right now, this is a good thing for us. Like, this is good for us to be here together, because if you was on your own, you would be struggling even more. You know, you would really be struggling even more. And so I don't know, it really makes me concerned about people who don't have the resources, or people who are sitting in lines for welfare, and then they looking at them as a man or as a woman, like I'm paying this out of my own paycheck. Like, where's the heart of America to take care of their own people?
But that's true. That absolutely goes with the senior citizens. I mean, you hit the point when it came to mortgages. I had to help my mom find a program because she can't afford the taxes, and she's capped here, but not all the taxes. And the programs are not enough. My family are helping her mortgage. So people are losing their houses because of all these inflations, not just the inflation of groceries and that. I mean, taxes have gone up, and it's hard for people to stay afloat.
Well, the interesting thing is that we're all having this conversation and we're all speaking the same language, right? Like, if I said to you, you know, that grace period between November and April, you know, that would save your life. Like, I don't know if y'all remember that, or any of y'all were as poor as I was, but I used to be like, oh my God, thank God it's the end of December, early January. They can't shut my heat off now because it's against, like, I used to be so grateful to be in those months, because I'm like, you know, by April, I'll figure it out, right? I'm not the only person that had to be like that, right? But this is a conversation that I don't think the folks that we were just talking about have any kind of idea. Like, I will be shocked if I hear the president talking about how tough it is and how insane people's electric bills are right now. Like, you may hear something funny about the cost of eggs, because now, like, everybody knows, like, the eggs are ridiculous. And eggs, like, it's not even funny, because, like, we're even hearing that the cost of eggs has gone up by like 30%, and there's no reason for it. Like, there's no connection. It's not supply chain. It's nothing other than they have the ability to do it and use inflation as an excuse. And we need our elected officials to say, oh, hell no, you're not going to do that to the American people. Will they say that in the State of the Union? How many people think so? How many people on this Zoom right now think that we're going to hear the president or we're going to hear, you know, the Republican leader talk about, like, we're going all in for the American people because we hear that you're hurting. We're going to do something about inflation. We're going to do something to have deeper regulation around, you know, all these utilities and making sure there's not price gouging and all this crap. Do you, like, I don't think so. Does anybody have faith?
I love for other people to talk. I do want to say this. What I feel like they're going to say is that our jobs have increased, like unemployment has decreased across the country, right? So that makes it look like people have more money, but it is really not true, because even though you raised the minimum wage in some states to $15, what difference do it make if you raise it to $15 when now you done raise inflation? Well, they making $10 again, really, technically, because you done raised the price of everything. So it's like, as you keep raising the bar for one thing, you keep moving the needle, right? It's a book called Who Moved the Cheese, about the rats in the maze. And every time the rats get closer to the cheese, you move it, right? And so every time community is getting closer to the needle, you're moving it so that they don't succeed. But anybody else, I love for
I used
go ahead,
to
Sunita.
I used to tell parents to be careful of the benefit cliff. And if you don't understand what the benefit cliff is pretty much saying like, okay, I made $1 over, so now I'm going to lose all of my resources. And to somebody that may seem like nothing, but to another person that may be like $700 in SNAP benefits, you know, $200 in putting money on my light bill, just from trying to better yourself and working to, you know, get out of that space. I was talking to my mom yesterday, and I literally said to her, I said, I can remember dropping my babies off at Head Start, going to internship, because in my head was like, I need to go back to school so I can better our situation. And I will not lie to you. I said to this lady, I said, I almost missed that time. I missed 2014. I said, and it's sad, I said to say it, because I make decent money at my full-time job, but it's like nothing is matching up. And the woman just turned around. She was like, I so understand where you're coming from. She was like, I feel like my check hit my account and it's gone before I could even really see it.
It's gone. Yeah. And there's no catching up and there's no getting ahead. And like, there's always like this tendency to indict people who are trying their best. Like it's that whole thing, like you're trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and then they cut the damn bootstraps off. You know, it's like, or they rip your boots off your feet, for crying out loud. Like there's no like incrementally like backing out of these supports. And then like we indict parents and families and people, just people, human beings, for saying like, I'm trapped. Like there's no way for me to survive and get out of this. We just can't do it. We just can't do it. So as we see in the polls all the time, like economic issues are front and center for American families, because I think the folks we talk to every day, and frankly, when we try to have conversations with other people in the education space, in the political space, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was laughing a little bit when folks were talking about we're going to have this giant red wave of angry parents, and it's all going to be about this culture war crap and CRT. And I can tell, like within about 30 seconds of talking to somebody, whether or not they have literally had any connection with actual human families in the last couple of months, by when they start popping off about like, oh yeah, parents are angry, and they go down this path. Like, yeah, parents are angry and anxious and frustrated and worried and weary and all those things, but it ain't about CRT. Like it's about, have you seen the light bill? Have you seen my grocery bill? Like, what am I going to do? And is there any end in sight? So it's deeply frustrating. And I would love to hear how you guys feel about it, but watching people waste time, you know, on issues that really have nothing to do with what we really need them to address, but instead, like we are constantly focused on seeing if we can gin up and get more people to hate each other and have ridiculous conversations. Neo, jump in here.
Yes, y'all, I just drove 12 hours, so I'm tired, but I'm always amped when we talk about this stuff. Even GOP parents, even Republican parents don't give a fuck about the culture war. They want their kids caught up. They want academic rigor. That's what all parents want. No one is concerned about this. So I really wish that, some of these governors could refocus and really listen to actual parents. Because there are some parents that are concerned about jackets, right? Making sure their kids are warm at school, making sure their kids are eating, and making sure they're not going to lose $100 once, the SNAP extension thing that they have runs out.
Yeah, and that's next month.
My
I was,
goodness.
Yeah, that's
I
next
They're
was
month.
in
not
March.
focused.
I think
They're
I was in
not, they are
March.
not focused on these parents at all. And it's so clear. They keep using the name parents in school choice. And they have no idea what the hell is really going on both sides. So that's my 3 cents, y'all.
Pascal, jump in.
I was hearing from the car, so I heard everything. So I just jumped on now that I'm home. Well, first, thank you, because I actually got to go to DC, and it was really interesting because as soon as they stopped talking, I was like, it just felt like they were kind of like, good job, guys. We're great. Like, we're doing such a good job. Yay, us. And I'm like, okay, there's positives we can celebrate, but there are still inequities and there are still families that are not being heard. And for a family, which I brought 2 parents from Charles County, and they're sitting there and they're like, what? Like, oh, we didn't mention students with learning differences and disabilities. We haven't mentioned all these districts that are non-compliant right now. We haven't mentioned the fact that districts should go beyond being just compliant. We haven't mentioned the fact that students are going to schools and they're fighting. They don't feel safe. They don't feel supported. You got SROs in those schools and shit's still happening. You don't have mental health support. You got families pulling their kids out of schools and trying to figure it out, either homeschooling or doing co-ops again, because they're like, no, I gave you all a chance during COVID and you messed it up. I gave you a chance coming back from COVID and you're messing it up. And then I have a sense of urgency today and I can't wait for you all and your progress to figure it all out. So that's it, I'm out. And those families are also trying to figure out, okay, now that I'm out, what do I do and how do I get support for that? Then a little context of my community is I live in Charles County. It's supposedly the wealthiest Black county in America. And yet you have families that live on properties without titles, without electricity, without running water in one of the richest Black counties in America. You have families also that live in what looks like a beautiful home, but are still trying to figure out where they're gonna get food from, are still needing help in getting clothes for winter, getting clothes because those babies are like, growing really fast and eating all the eggs in the house. But like you're having families deal with real issues and they're not getting any support from either their delegates or their commissioners or their state representatives. And you're hearing all the fluff and you're seeing them party and you're seeing them celebrate each other. And you're like, well, where's the work happening?
Yeah,
and then when they
Pascal,
actually get into community, it's not happening.
You literally saw it up close because it was kind of funny. So Pascal brought these awesome parents who, like, you could see like how upset they were that like literally there was no mention of exceptional kids, children with special needs. The fact that like we really screwed up when it came to special education, like the level of regression we're seeing in kids, like these are the kids that really need acceleration, right? They need deep focus and they have rights and they were just flat out ignored. I mean, it's stunning. But afterwards, like I thought it was really fun. Like these parents got fired up and, across the room, I see Cindy Martin, who is the deputy U.S. Secretary of Education. And I said, oh, Cindy, why don't you come right over here? Because we have a bone to pick with you. Now, this woman comes over and she's on the talking points, right? And she's like, it's almost like she starts giving Cardona's speech again, like as
Yeah.
if we were too stupid to understand what he just said. And we literally had to stop her and say, oh, no, like, we got it, girl. Here's what you didn't get and what we didn't hear. And we literally had to walk her into saying, like, we're not idiots. Like, we got it. We were here in the front row for the speech. We got the little PowerPoint, beautiful job, but not what we're looking for. Here's what we're looking for, homegirl. And
Yep.
like, Pascal, at the end, like, I understand why those parents were so frustrated, because I was frustrated. We had to actually put some of those up on social media, because we got some great, like, we were in the scrum, like, we were not backing off these points and not dazzled by this moment. We were like, that's great, Cindy. Can we talk about something for real? But like, this woman, oh my God, at the last minute, she busts out her cell phone. Us that she cares about children with special needs by telling us her brother has special needs. I'm like, girl, no,
It
you
was terrible.
Oh,
It was
stop. You didn't
terrible.
do that, did you? Like,
It was terrible. My parents would not stop talking about it, and they're just like, "What did we just witness?" And I was like, "But this is what this is what NPU can do, is bring us into spaces so that, one, you see the different conversations, two, they feel your presence, and three, you hold them to the fire, because the fluff that they witnessed from the national PTA, which at grade schools is one of our partners, but I'm like, that, shame on you. Shame on you for supposedly representing parents, and you're going in there giving them the easiest questions of the world and high-fiving each other when you got parents in the room that are looking at you like you're crazy. And
well,
parents that
we have to
ask
be in
afterwards
these
for the
rooms.
questions.
That's why we have to
Mhm.
do it, so that we can roll up and give them the business afterwards. Like, listen,
Yep.
God bless our friends at the National PTA, but like the softballs, like, we were playing patty cake with Cardona with some of the questions that were being asked as follow-up. So,
Yep.
okay, but like, we're gonna ask you, like, as we always say, like, from the National Parents Union, like, we're gonna ask you real direct questions, and we're not gonna let you treat us like we're stupid. Because I don't know about you, girl, but I felt like Cindy was a little condescending, like, oh, maybe you didn't understand what we were. No, girl.
Oh,
we got
yeah.
That's exactly what it is, Keri. We were just on a podcast this past week with Dan, and one of the ladies who sits on the podcast with us is always a little challenging for me, right? Because she's a school authorizer, and she always makes these comments about parents, and I'm always pushing back with her. You've seen us at the event, right, like, with the podcast, and I'm always pushing back to her, like, dude, hold on, quit talking about you the professional. Oh, but see, what parents and us as the professionals, she even used the words like, kind of like, stay our lane. We as the professionals kind of stay our lane. And it's like, bitch, first of all, let me see something. You gonna quit making it like we don't have a place to be in this when y'all the ones getting wealthy off of our kids. It's like, because that's
Yep.
all y'all doing. You are
Okay, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, the amateur hour. I'm trying to, like, shut up, but I got like, this whole idea, like, we're the professionals, we're the experts. Like, you're getting our kids to like 18% reading proficiency. Like, that's not like like any kind of expertise. That's like incredible failure. Like,
Any other job, they be fired. If they were paid according to how children are learning, they would all lose their jobs. And that's a fact. And then on top of that, with everything that's going on, my thing, for those of you that, y'all know my thing, what's happening with the resources that are made available, because all the things that everybody talked about are absolutely right. But if it's a family that comes from another country, doesn't understand what's going on, they're losing their minds. I don't know if you guys know that there is a new law that was passed by the Biden administration that allows people to be here for 2 years from another country. Up to 2 years from another country. And then once that time is almost up, they have to justify why they can't go back to their home country. And if it's for violent reasons, if they're afraid, people coming in from Nicaragua, from Haiti, from El Salvador, from Mexico, that are dealing with gangs and violence and everything else that's going on in those countries, have to prove, no, if I go back, I'm going to get killed. I wonder if they're going to talk about that, because I was listening to the Spanish radio station. That's all they were talking about, that people are so scared, so concerned. It is a quick way to get into the country quicker than a family member asking for someone with this 2-year parole that they're talking about. But once it's over, what's going to happen? And, you know, people that are coming in from other countries are the ones that they're saying they're taking all our jobs, because, but then nobody wants to do the kind of jobs they're being paid for. So it's crazy. And here in Philly, there's a thing now. The school district is actually suing the city of Philadelphia because city council passed a law that says if they see, based on city building inspectors, that a school building is not safe, they're going to start shutting school buildings down. So the district is like, now they're going to sue. Instead of taking all those ESSER and ARP monies to fix these messed up buildings so the children can be in there and the teachers can be in there in a safe environment, they're like, oh no, we're going to sue you, we're going to fight. You're not going to shut down our school.
Well, and our friend Tabby has been leading
Yes.
this conversation and this fight. Thank goodness. Like, other than our friend Tabby from Michigan, who is the absolute queen mother warrior around school safety issues. And we're talking about school safety, like, is the damn school falling down? Are tables going to fall on top of our children? Has this stuff been inspected? Like, we don't even talk about that. And now you have a district that's saying, instead of fixing it and making sure kids are safe, we're just going to sue, because we don't want to do that. We'd rather sue, and I can't even. But the immigration issue, I just going back to the State of the Union and the larger conversation, immigration comes up pretty high too, because it's a huge political issue. I want to ask you guys about some of the other things that we've seen in previous polling that has come up, just to find out like where it resonates. The issue of abortion and Roe versus Wade. That has actually polled very high for parents and families being a top concern. They want to hear folks talk about it. We would have had the 50th anniversary of Roe v. Wade the other day. It was a couple of days ago. And it still tends to be, you know, part of the conversation. Also, crime and safety, people just not feeling safe in their own neighborhoods, people not feeling like their kids are safe in schools. I mean, and if you're watching the news, mass shootings and everything that's going on in this country, like, I don't know if this is a problem that ever gets solved, because, you know, when the situation happened in Uvalde and there were a bunch of little kids that look just like my Miley in those classrooms, and it breaks my heart, because the logical and moral thing would be to pass laws that would, you know, ban assault weapons and all that. But God, 10 years ago, when they shot up a classroom filled with, you know, 20 white children, that, you know, Republicans didn't even care. So the chances of them caring about a whole classroom full of little brown boys and girls, that might be a bridge too far. But when are we gonna, like, have we just resigned ourselves to the fact that, like, we love our guns more than we love children and other people? Or like, what are you guys feeling? Is this a topic of conversation, you know, in your neck of the woods?
I'll say I wish it was, but I'm here down in the South. So when there was a bill that was introduced around guns not being allowed. When we say government buildings, that includes parks and recreation, and 100 yards or 100 feet from government buildings. So we're like, yeah, that makes sense. Why would you need a gun in a government building? Like, why would you need it in a park? And that same night, we also had a school board meeting. Almost the whole county showed up to the bill about the guns to speak on their love for their weapons, rather than go to a school board meeting and advocating to make sure that this was not infringing on their rights to hold, you know, to have their weapons, their card carrying, they're responsible, blah, blah, blah. And yet I see those same parents on posts from our sheriff's office when they post every time there's an incident at our schools, or someone brings a replica gun, or someone thought there was a weapon, talking about how terrible our youth is. So I'm like, guys, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, and we need to make more sense than that. So when it comes to guns, I wish it was more of a discussion. I wish that where I lived, that people understand that that is a problem, and that there are ways that we can make that you can still have maybe your guns, but we can be a safer society. But it doesn't seem like in my neck of the woods, people want to have that discussion. And on abortion in the state of Maryland, it's still legal. We still have access to healthcare. We still have access to clinics. So, and we now have our first Black governor, so we're really excited about what's more. And so I'm hoping that continues now that we also have a Democratic governor, but we'll see.
Celicia, can you jump in here? Because you're kind of in an interesting state in Colorado. Like, it's my perception, and you got to straighten me out here, but some of y'all love guns. Like lot of
I mean, a lot of people in the country love guns. Let's fix it. NRA.
I don't want to just say
Rules of-
Colorado's great, but you guys have like kind of
Yeah.
that vibe. Like we have in New Hampshire in this neck of the woods, like live free or die
Yeah.
kind of stuff, like wilderness culture, but also kind of a blue state, like, so what are you hearing? A little
So
bit
they
purple
say,
kind of
right?
swing?
I mean, we're a weird state because yes, I think in theory, everybody thinks, oh, Colorado is liberal, right? But liberal is a tricky term. We also, tend to be really blue on the inner city, but very red with the majority of our state, which is rural. And we're an agriculture.
Kentucky. Like
What's that?
People think Massachusetts is like this crazy blue state. We have areas of the state I call Massatucky, where they're real red and the
Yeah.
Trump crazy people are
Yeah.
up Kentucky. But you know what I'm talking about, right? But there's this perception that like we are all like, practically socialist here. And it's a real mix.
Yeah. So we have a lot of that. The rural areas are agriculture. I mean, we're an agricultural state. And so guns and NRA and I mean the KKK, one of the main headquarters is in Colorado Springs, which is not too far from Denver. So I think guns, I mean, I need to say too, like as a Native American woman, and a rising abolitionist, as I lead through this work, guns are tricky, right? Like many folks know that I stay close and work with young people, and guns for our Black, Brown, Indigenous, BIPOC students are not, a sign of safety. In our schools, when we're talking about SROs, I mean, I have students right now working on an expulsion bill with our Colorado Youth Justice Partners. And when we're talking, students have done heavy work in this concept of removing SROs and really thinking about what a wraparound program looks like for a school, really kind of like a community school-based model to remove guns. I mean, but for students that look like us on this screen, guns are not typically a sign of safety. And that's different from when we go into a predominantly white school where many of our students will say like the presence of a police officer represents safety for me. Where and I talk in education, but I also in our streets, right? Like we're talking about this expulsion bill where we have, I know one student who is like, I know that I'm going to get in trouble for, he got expelled for taking a gun to school, but he was like, listen, I have to walk through Park Hill to get to school, and I'm not about to get caught losing my life walking to school because that's how bad these streets are. I'll take the punishment at school, knowing that like I got to get to school, but I can't do it without being able to protect myself. That's
so real. Like I just identify with that so much, like the same lived experience. Like I was expelled from high school for having a weapon, and I had the weapon because like I had been jumped in front of school so many times and like by dudes, and I was like just like that was kind of the culture of like the chaos that was going on around me. And instead of like looking at kids as young inexperienced human beings that are just like looking for something to protect themselves because they don't have the right supports around them or the right environment around them, like, and trying to figure out like if a child is having to resort to that to find safety and protection, like what are we as grown-ups doing to make sure, instead of ruining lives? Because that's what happens. Like expulsion leads to like this domino effect of chaos, like that just perpetuates, and it's intergenerational. So I think that's extraordinary work in Colorado. And I know that our friend Julia Pringle in Minnesota is also leading legislation out there to try to address the suspension issue for our youngest kids who
Yeah.
are K through
Yeah.
3 for crying out loud. And we have to have that
Yeah.
conversation, but
I mean, I think guns is a really, and I'll say that I'm also like, I have some PTSD. I mean, I have not shared this with, I don't think anyone on this call, but my daughter, when she was in high school, was shot by what they call gang affiliated situation, which in the cops, the police language is that like my daughter is not affiliated with any gang. But the person who shot her is identified as a gang member. So I think that like in my own neighborhood, where I grew up and where I live, we have just a different relationship with guns. And many of them are not registered guns. Many of them are not in this political fight of NRA and we want our rifles and we talk about our rifles like they're people and the crazy talk like that. And so a lot of them are used for against our own people in our own communities because we are so broken systemically from some of the things that we're talking about earlier, like economics, financial stability, literacy, like all of these things that come from like I mean I would push back a little bit, Nehemiah, like the culturally responsive curriculum, and I know that like for Republicans, or I'm not gonna say for Republicans, for a white man that's a different, that it is a different concept than it is for me, or for the young people that families and parents that we're fighting for. It is so important for us to know who we are and who our people are and where our history comes from, and that is not being taught in our classrooms. Every student will say that I've ever worked with in the past 20 years that they want ethnic studies, they want to learn about their history and their identity, and they're tired of this white narrative or this white supremacy culture that our kids are being violated in every day, that we call it school, we call it education, and they're not getting that. That piece is so critical, right? When we talk about slavery, and even for my own people here on this continent, the genocide, like there's a reason why they don't want us to read. There's a reason why they don't want us to be literate and have these tools. And that's a systemic, we live in capitalism and that's at the core root of it. But I also get into this space. I was thinking earlier with the conversation around numbers, like we celebrate mediocrity, right? Like here in Denver, Colorado, it's like not only the gun issue with SROs in schools and our students being violated, but we have school closures happening. I mean, in Denver public schools, where this year was slated to shut 17 schools down in 1 year. Those schools are primarily in the schools on the outskirts of the city where there's Black and brown communities that are still currently being pushed out by gentrification. And so there's already a huge lack of resources being put in, to those neighborhoods and communities. And now we're closing schools where you want to talk about parents, right? But then we open it up like, oh, we have school choice. Well, what is school choice when a parent is working 2 and 3 jobs to survive, to live, paycheck to paycheck, barely, right? To pay bills to survive with basic needs, when I'm going to have to get up to figure out I have 3 kids and they're all going to go to a different school, and public transportation doesn't provide free access here. School, district transportation, school buses are not filling all the routes. Like this is a domino effect, and it's not like the whole system to me is like bursting at its seams and crumbling.
Well, it's interesting. And like people don't talk about the inequity that exists within school choice. We just think,
right.
If you have choices, like it's automatically going to be better. But
right.
Some of us don't have access to the beautiful choices. Like some of us don't have it's kind of like the options you have when you shop, right? Like some wealthy white folks have access to these beautiful glistening malls, and they're going to like Balenciaga and all of the Gucci. Yeah. While the rest of us are choosing from the shopping center that's got the Cricket wireless, that has check cashing place, and the grocery store that has rotten lettuce in it. Like Like, those
Or
are,
we got nannies to
That's
take
right.
every kid to a different school, right? We got nannies, we got, some
Yeah.
people have that privilege, right? Most.
exactly, exactly. Like,
neighborhood doesn't.
we can't choose from the buffet. Like, it would be wonderful if everybody was
Right.
sitting home and you could just shuttle your kid from option up. Like, people aren't living like that because of the earlier part of our conversation around, like, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna get that $500 from so that I can pay this light bill, like,
Right, right.
like, crap.
Yeah, we don't even give our kids, free public transportation here to get to and from school. We don't give them the access, like they have to perform to get a bus pass in our district. It's like you have to have a certain attendance, you have to have a certain grade, whatever. But it's like, but you want them here, don't you? Right? And then, like, let's not talk about the public safety. Like, if we're here, it's like, if a student wants to choose to go across town, how many buses, how many neighborhoods, how many light rails do they got to go through, right, to get there? So we're talking 2 hours of transportation for a child to get to school, 8 hours a day to sit in a chair and focus. Don't get me started on how education is not up to par for what our kids need for the 20th century, and then 2 hours back home. What if they want to play sports? What if they want to engage? What if they want to do some activities? Like, that's not even an option. And do homework. By the time they get home at 6, 7 o'clock, they ain't had dinner, all these things that, like, are just a trickle down effect of this bloated system.
Well, before we wrap up, because our time is running short, I want to make sure that we talk about an issue and get your perspective on an issue that we know the president is definitely going to talk about. And it's something that we don't always talk about that maybe we should talk about more. And that's the issue of environmental justice.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it feels like we don't have the luxury to even have that conversation because we're out here trying to live, right? Like, do we have the opportunity to think deeply about the impact, fossil fuels and everything? Like, we can see the impact of global warming playing out just this winter. Like, my God. And everyone is telling us that we are in critical condition. But I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the time it was difficult to start to introduce the concept of environmental justice and global warming, like being concerned about the life of the planet, to parents that are literally like I'm just trying to survive. Like, I'm trying to find that $500. But when it comes down to it, what was really eye-opening to me is the fact that, as always, the disproportionality of impact on our communities, because we're forced to live next to brownfields and deal with the consequences of disease, or our kids have higher rates of asthma because of the impact of pollution and things like cockroaches, like, on our babies. And we don't think about, the injustice that our communities face as a piece of that. Like, we're not part of that conversation. And that space, even if you have parents who are talking about it, and I kind of joke sometimes, it's the folks that wear Lululemon and have those fancy jogging strollers and have the nannies and stuff, like, they have the time to think deep thoughts about the future and the planet and everything, like. But we need to be a part of that conversation. We know that President Biden is actually going to be talking about that because, it's a huge piece of his platform. And frankly, he's also a politician and he knows his base is very activated around that. So I want to open this up too. Maybe we'll start with Neo and get his comments on the last subject as well. But, like, is this something that you're thinking about, that folks in your neck of the woods are talking about? And, like, outside of just, hearing the traditional, like, more solar panels, more electric cars, more windmills, like, can we start to address the injustice that communities are facing, and maybe also start to have a conversation from a different angle on this stuff? So Neo, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I will say, as far as environmental justice, that is definitely an issue that people in my community are concerned with in Tulsa, especially brownfields that are close to schools that have majority Black and brown students. And that's been raised at the city council as well. But just to kind of correct the narrative, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that when I mention anything about the GOP, it's usually out of strategy when it comes to getting the president or getting this administration to kind of hear parents across the board. Parents across the board aren't necessarily concerned about culture wars. They want their kids to read. Now, Black parents, right, or BIPOC parents, they definitely want culturally affirming curriculum. They want to be able to see themselves in that curriculum. So I just wanted to make sure that I was very clear on
Thanks,
to that
Nehemiah.
end.
I figured, but like the language,
I was
I
like, hold
part
on,
of it.
hold on.
Right. Like the language they use, right? I mean, because that's their narrative to be able, and so I think it is important. Thank you for clarifying. I didn't think you thought, yeah, anyway.
No, I hear what you said, what you're saying though, but I think that that just needed to be very clear.
Yeah.
And even if I'm speaking in front of someone else, I should be able to provide more context. So thank you for checking on that.
Pascal, jump in.
So my neck of the woods, I like to also tell people that Charles County is actually Piscataway and Kenoi land, and it's really beautiful down here. I have a mix of rural, urban, suburban, and we provide most of the air, the clean air and water to Maryland from my neck of the woods. I'm literally in the actual woods. And so here we actually do have parents and community that we have a strong network and we have strong resources here for environmental justice. We have our Nanjamoy Environmental Center, which actually students get to go to that center to learn about the different ways we get to take care of our land and the environment around us. And we fight for more than just that to be for middle school students. We actually want our elementary and our high school students to be a part of those programs. But it's really cool to know that we have that in our backyard. And then our families are also part of the Resilience Authority. And that here is part of, like the first kind in Maryland of a government program where community gets to be involved to make sure that we are taking care of our waterways and we are taking care of the natural environment around us. So for us, it actually really does matter because, sorry, my kids are screaming.
Okay.
That's real life for you.
You don't need to apologize. Not here. I'm surprised you can't hear my boys rumbling in the back.
I know they're just waiting to see. I'm waiting to see which one sees me first and is gonna jump on the call. And I know it's gonna be the small one with the curls. But for us, it really does matter because that's the water that our babies are ingesting. That's also, we've tested our schools. Some of them actually have tested for higher lead. We actually did have a new airport that was built here, which has affected actually the lead in our schools, and two that are mostly predominantly Black and Indigenous. So we've had those conversations and have actually had to go speak at our county meeting and public forums to try to get them to do new reports and look into that. So though we have a lot on our plate, the environment is something that really matters to us because we have to take care of it. Because that just means that if we don't take care of it now, it's just generations and generations that are going to suffer of our babies. I hope they mention it.
Oh, I'm very certain that you will hear from President Biden on that. Bernita, you want to have the last comment and wrap us up?
Yes. So thank you all. Thank you all so much. I did want to also say about environmental justice. There's a book, and I was looking to see if I had it to just grab to get y'all the exact quote. There's this billionaire who been working on all these education projects and electronics and like the future of AI. And he went to his daughter to ask his older teen daughter about about it and what would she say. And she said, while you're working on AI, who's going to be here to run it, right? Like who's going to be here to sustain it if we don't save this world? And as a matter of fact, we as young people are tired of y'all saying that we are the future. Like we're the ones who's going to change it because this ain't even our mess. Y'all are leaving us an inheritance of mess that you're putting the onus on us to change it when it is up to you to change it. Those who are here now and those who are in power, and what you do right now will actually impact us in the future. And I feel appalled as a young person that you are putting this burden to save a whole planet on me when y'all the ones messed it up. So that's like I think indicative to the heart of like probably most young people in this world, and talk about mental health and anxiety issues. All that stuff that we just talked about weighs on the mental health of a child, because they're seeing their parents economically unstable. They're seeing their moms and they're hearing them say what bills came in and how they can't afford to pay them. They are the ones hearing and seeing the violence in their communities and being impacted and creating new routes and trying to say, we want to be safe. They're the ones seeing gentrification come to their schools and understanding that y'all closing our schools really because y'all want more white kids in these spaces and y'all trying to push us out, right? So they're seeing all this, and the lack of transparency and bringing their voices to the table is hurting them even more. And all of that stems up to like, how you expect them to even be mentally able to deal with all of this. And we won't even deal with it as a system or as a government. So I thank y'all for being here. We will continue this conversation more in the future. Reminder, please, for everybody, that we have some intentional TikToks this year. Our group are being, and this TikTok, I just want y'all to know, like, we are not doing this as some, oh, we TikTok famous. No, we are getting this out, right? Like, this is literally for us to be saying exactly what we just said on this call, and to share it across all of our networks. So we
Because that's
really,
where people are. That's where, like, we want to go and bring the message to where the people are instead of trying to bring the people to the message, right?
right. And then even us thinking about the fact that less than a month ago or a month and a half ago, they accused us of not being real parents, the parents with the fake children, right? And I'm gonna keep throwing it out there. We remember, y'all, we all got cloned.
I remember that.
Remember that, right? So those kids in the background screaming Pascal, they are not human children. Remember that. So
Let me go, let me go get these, right? These non-human children.
right. And
It's
so
in my mind.
so we want to make sure they see the people doing the work. So Marissa has sent out an all call for everybody to meet with her to record. I saw some of the recordings. They are beautiful. And I thank y'all who have been able to do your recording. But we really want to record this in an authentic voice, your voice, like not for NPU, but to say, this is why I do the work. And y'all, I'm down for this cause, right? Not down for NPU, but I'm down for my people. I am down for making sure things are being changed in our community, and I'm dedicated to this. So please, if you have not met with her, and if you have something, I want y'all to know, like, this is just not structured by me and Maritza and the Parent Voice team. If you have something that's prompt and you like, Bernita, this is pissed. Nehemiah called me last week, pissed about Governor DeSantis. I jumped on it and was like, what we gotta do, Nehemiah? Like, I listened to him on the phone, and then we put a TikTok up about it, right? Nehemiah was so frustrated driving, like, just, this is really hurting my heart right now that this is happening. And so if it's something going on and you want to do a TikTok or you want me to do a TikTok, like, it's not about my face being on there. It's about
If you
all
want
of
to
us.
do more than a TikTok and you want to press, like, that's what this is about. Like, let's, if you're mad, we're all mad.
If you're mad, we're mad, right?
If you
And so
want to write a blog about something that pisses you off, you can write a blog, even if you're concerned about repercussions, it could be anonymous.
Yep. And
you even got to put your name on it.
Matter of fact, we have our blog list already, so we will be calling on y'all. So we want to know, I'll let you know what months we ask for y'all to write y'all blog, and we will be calling on you. No stress. Like, I don't want y'all stressing out. Like, is this grammatically correct? Is this in the right frame? Or we write in our hearts. Somebody told me years ago, write with your heart first, then put your mind to it. That's pointing at the heart here, like the heart is up here. That's the wrong place, ain't it? If I was a surgeon, I just killed the patient. Okay, so write with your heart first, then go in with your mind. Because the whole point is get out everything going on with you. And then we got a little bit of editing support on the back end to help us think through. Like, I sent Marissa something. It was like, hey, I need to know more about this because this was real passionate, but tell me more about why you think this, right? And so we're gonna be doing that in the next couple of months, and we'll revisit it in June to say where we landed at. Want you to know is picking up wonderful. And again, this ain't just about us being on TikTok. This is about us sharing the faces of who's doing this work. And y'all are the ones doing the work. And so I thank you. I would like to close with everybody. If you would like to come off mute for a minute. And there is a fun closing exercise that we do. It's called the dinosaur roar around oh my God, look, I forgot the name of it, but it's a mental health roar. You can do it whenever you feeling like we just talked about a whole bunch of stuff that built up some energy. So now we want to let some of that energy out. So what you do is you breathe in, and when you let out, you go like a dinosaur, right? It is funny. If you ever in a group full of people and you done talked about some stuff, you can do it as loud as you want. They can shake their hands, shake their arms, whatever, but it gets some of them off of it. Get some of that stuff off of you so that you can go back and enjoy your family for the rest of the night, okay? So I like for everybody come off mute because I'm gonna hear y'all roars, hear your roars, okay? And so shake your arms. I'm gonna count to 3 and we gonna breathe in real deep through our nose on 3 and then roar out as loud as you can, okay? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Roar.
Sammy.
Sorry, I
Okay,
had a bad day.
we gonna try this one more time. I heard people say cute for I don't want the kids. I don't want Tim running in here thinking I'm crazy, like something wrong, right?
Right.
We're gonna do a real roar. I want you to roar from your stomach and get it out. And we're gonna end this with a laugh, okay? And we gonna move forward. The kids, they can come in and do it too. I see them, you looking, right? They like, are they roaring? Did they say that? Yes, we did.
My 5-year-old is like, what?
Tell her come in the camera. She can roar with us.
She
So
can do it too.
For 3 seconds, a deep, deep breath, and then out your roar, and then that's the end of our session. So on the count of 3.
Mama finally gets me. Mama finally speaking my language.
My kids thought something was wrong just now. You got me in here, got the kids thinking something is wrong.
Right, right. Okay, breathe in on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank y'all. Love y'all. Hopefully y'all got some of that heaviness off of y'all because that was a heavy conversation. Enjoy the rest of your night. Me and Marissa will see you next month. But if there's anybody who has not done your video, if you can stay on for a few minutes and do your video with Marissa, we would appreciate it and love you.
Bye. Thank you.
We
Marissa,
good. So Lisa,
are we staying on?
No, hon, you're gonna go on the StreamYard link.
Okay.
I'm going to, yes, I'm gonna forward it over to you again.
Sorry, did you send it to NPU?
I sent it to both, but I just sent it.
Okay.
I sent it again to your NPU one just now.
Hold on, let me see.
Bernita, I want to take up on you with what you were talking about TikTok. What pisses me off because I really want to talk about school boards and districts because I'm feeling it.
Oh yeah, say some bastards.
Yeah.
And then even blogs. So because I'm getting really frustrated out here.
Okay, so whatever you want to write, you can write it. I'll give you your dates. You don't have to wait for your date to write a blog. You don't have to wait. You can write it now. But if you have a TikTok that you want to say something, please send me it. We just asking for it to be no more than like 30 to 45 seconds. That's about the longest that TikTok, like people gonna hold the interest. And then I can find the literature to go with it and all of that. I generally give it to Ariel to make sure, like when we're talking about boards, or we're talking about political stuff, we're not talking about nothing that falls over into the 504c3. I mean 501c4, whatever it's called. And then we post it. It's nothing to post, and I'll find some nice lyrics, music to go behind it, and all of that.
I think just some guidance on like what to put like for TikTok, like you were saying, just to make sure I stay on
So
point.
you can go ahead, Marissa. Thank you. Say that again.
I think it's just some talking points just to make sure, because I want to sometimes I know I talk, you know, I'm gonna just say it, and I don't want to go too crazy on it. So maybe some guidance on the TikTok piece, and then and maybe some help on the blog, because I really need to get this out. It's just getting too crazy, and I really want to talk about how they're really not listening to us.
Yep. So I'll send you what I sent Tafshir's team too. It has a rundown of a little bit of guidance, right? And I put some things in there like reminder to make sure whatever you're talking about is factual. Like send me some like Nehemiah sent me the article that he was referencing or the story he was referencing and why people didn't, you know, like whatever. So do your due diligence to make sure you sending me like this is what our board is talking about, this is what people are saying, right? Or whatever it might be. But in your video just is your words. I just ask people to get straight to the point, right? Like don't kind of. So I'm gonna do an example of one video. So on one video I was doing for Martin Luther King, I was like, hey, you guys, I'm gonna time this just so you'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Stopwatch. Okay. So I'm gonna start off this. Me and my daughter did like 10 takes of this. She was cracking up at me. She was sitting in the chair right on here, cracking up at me, trying to do this thing on TikTok about Martin Luther King. So here I was like, hey everybody, this is Bernita Bradley from National Parents Union. And tomorrow we are celebrating the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. And I just want you to know that it is also a day of service. And we want to know, how do you serve your community? What do you do to impact the people in your families, in your community, to give back? Dr. Martin Luther King genuinely gave back all the time. Okay, that right there was 28 seconds.
Okay.
And I have not given them any information about how they can serve. So 15 seconds is not going to be good enough to tell them how they can serve, right? So I had to take a lot of that fluff stuff out of the beginning, right? And I just started off with, did you know tomorrow's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday? We're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. It's also a day of service. And Dr. Martin Luther King serves his community. We want to know what you do to serve your community. Did you know that AmeriCorps members every day do I'm messing up. I'm paraphrasing what I said, but every year does a National Day of Service where community members from all over unite to do cleaning in their community, projects with students, service projects with the homeless, and it's all free and you'll feel good from it. So what do you do to serve your community? That TikTok was like, I gave them ideas on what to do. I mentioned AmeriCorps, and then I popped up like pictures of AmeriCorps. So you don't necessarily have to give me pictures, but you can give me pictures, right? If you give me pictures of people, and it's gonna have it in this email I send, like make sure those people you have permission to use their photo. Or you just send me pictures of people from the back so that people don't, like the board is a public entity. Their photo is everywhere. But any other people in the crowd, like just make sure it's a photo of them from the back.
Yeah, I got pictures of the board like to the front. So, and I saw that TikTok that you did, which was very good, because I was like, I thought that was neat because you put that AmeriCorps picture, showing them that. And I kind of want to do that. And I need to probably talk to, it's Tashir that's handling the Epic campaign, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because my parents here, I think maybe I need to do 2 videos, because it's steps of, how to get, your point across, but making sure that you follow those steps so that these policy changes that you want to see change in your school board are happening, right? Like,
no, that's area. So that's area.
Well,
so
it's more of like grievances, like filing grievances.
But that's still area.
That's still area, because I think it's a step by step, and I could talk to her about it. So I may want to do probably more than one, because a lot of my group, it's like, well, what are the steps, Wendy? I follow the steps of what the school is asking. Nobody's listening. They don't even
Yeah.
know their policy. So how do I do a grievance? If I want a records request, how do I do that if I want to prepare for this grievance?
Yeah.
And then it's like, what's my next step if I feel like that grievance did not serve anything?
Yeah.
And what are those steps? And that's what I'm kind of, that's why I keep going. Like, Ariel's been my savior right now, because I constantly will call her. Like, today was like crazy. So it's I think that's what I want to start doing, is getting that out and pushing it, because parents are like, well, I don't even know, like you were saying, I don't know how to do this. And, I don't
Yeah.
even know my grammar. Is it right? Is it, I say, don't worry about that. I'll just show you how to.
So this is what you could do too. You could do a series of the same subject, right? And we can label it literally like part 1, part 2, part 3, right? And it could be the series of how do I work towards changing policy, or how do I work to even be heard, right? You could say, okay, so for like the first 30-second video could be, too often parents in the community, don't feel they have a voice because they don't even know how to follow the protocol, or because when they go to file a complaint, schools act like there's not a protocol to follow in, like they don't have to listen to families. But here's what you can do to make sure they listen to you, right? That could be your first video. You could say the second video is step 1, like, if your child's been harmed or blah, 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 did you know your school has a parent complaint form that the principal has to reply to you within 10 days or within such and such days, right? There's policy that those rules. There's policies that every school has to follow. Blah, blah, blah. Look up your parent rule handbook. Your parent handbook of rules, whatever they call it, right?
Well,
Then,
it would either the student code of conduct or the student handbook.
well, so every school should still have like a parent, or if they don't, like every district has a portion about the parents, right?
Right.
And so you tell them where that's at, right? And then you tell them, but then if they're not listening, here's where you can go to. But you can also check out our website, and here's a toolkit from the National Parents Union around this, right? Then you can also come back to the next video. It could be a series of a couple of videos, right? The next one is, when addressing your board, do you know that before you can speak to the board for public comment, you need to go to your local board and find out when those comments when you have to submit to make a comment. You don't have to tell them what you're going to say, but this is where you apply, right? And you can show them even a link. So I've been doing this thing of scrolling on my phone and screen recording it as I'm scrolling on my phone, so it'll look just like a parent would look on their phone. You could do that, and while you're talking, you're doing your video, I can put that video that you sent of me of you scrolling on your phone to show how a parent applied in Texas, and I could put that over your face while you're video, right?
Kind of like what you did, where you showed that form. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can go back and be like, okay, and once you get there, remember, you're only going to have about 2 minutes to talk. So practice what you're going to say beforehand. Write it down. Think about what's your biggest topic, your most highest priority, or whatever, however you're going to word it, right? Stick to the facts and make sure you leave them wanting to hear more. They probably won't want to hear more, but you're going to give them more at the next board meeting, right? Like, you can even give them tools of don't be intimidated. Don't worry about what you said was perfect. Just make sure you get out what's on your heart, this and that, blah, 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 right? And then you can even talk about that policy piece that you were talking about. Here's what we're doing to change policy, right? In Texas, such and such. And your message don't have to necessarily be just for Texas, but because you're in Texas, maybe that's what you talk about, right? But it can be about a national effort for families to even understand, because there's so many parents don't know. They just think they can show up at a board meeting when they have a complaint. and be like, I'm gonna be able to speak. And then they get there and they're frustrated, right? Then they learn. But your TikTok could show them. Or there's so many parents who like, well, I talked to the teacher about that. No. If you got a grievance, mama, we're gonna need you to put this on paper. Like we always tell them in meetings. Quit talking to these people. Because when you start doing a paper trail, then they really start listening, right? Because they know that you are tracking whether they giving your child the support they need or whether they've handled an issue the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, because I'm learning that right now. So Ariel's kind of walking me through that because I told her, look, I'm to the point where I actually feel like we need to file a grievance. But I'm showing her all these things that I'm seeing that I feel like they're breaking the law. So she's telling me the laws, right? And I said, I need to spread this word to other parents because it's like, how do you tell if a school district is not complying to a law, whether it be local or federal? So it's like, that's where she's helping me on that piece. But I think that's exactly what I want to do is do a series where I walk them through it and then still have our website to kind of like, well, here's this. And then maybe an idea of maybe each one of us through our states where on NPU, where like if they look us up, where we can show like maybe easy